Hello and welcome to the third video or live stream of the Conquering freeCodeCamp Curriculum Challenge. In the previous two live streams, we covered HTML and HTML5 and also basic CSS. You can see here we have gone through all of the challenges. And now we're going to do the applied visual design section, which has 52 challenges or lessons or however you want to call it. Hello everyone who joined in the chat in the meantime, and welcome to this live stream. And also hello for those of you who are watching in the future this recording. Okay, looks like in this section we are going to learn more about CSS, background color, font size, and all of that fun stuff. Positioning, ooh, that's nice. CSS transforms, nice, that's pretty neat. I'm very curious what we're going to learn. Okay, let's see who joined in the chat. Hello Jessica and Hannah and Kavit, and hello Sergio. How are you all doing? Hopefully you're fine and ready to code something. Okay, let's see, we have the introduction. What does it say? Visual design in web development is a broad topic. It combines typography, color theory, graphics, animation, and page layout to help deliver a site's message. The definition of good design is a well-discussed subject, with many books on the theme. At the basic level, most web content provides a user with information. The visual design of the page can influence its presentation and a user's experience. In web development, HTML gives the structure and semantics to the page content, so how I call it, the bones, and CSS controls the layout and appearance of the web page, so the skin and everything which is visual. Okay, this section covers some of the basic tools developers use to create their own visual designs. Interesting. Alright, let's go to the first lesson. Create visual balance using the text align property. Okay, this section of the curriculum focuses on the applied visual design. The first group of challenges build on the given card layout to show a number of core principles. Text is often a large part of web content. CSS has several options for how to align it with the text align property. We have justify, center, right, and left. Right and left are obvious, and also center. Justify basically means that all the lines of the text except the last line will be stretched out to fill the container. I usually work with text align center, and very often I use text align center, and here and there maybe you use justify for the text align property. Alright, let's see. What's the task? Align an H4 tags text, which says Google, to the center. Then justify the paragraph tag, which contains information about how Google was founded. Alright, so let's see. The Google is within an H4 tag, and we have a paragraph. So look at that, they already created the selectors for us. So for the text Google, we're going to say text align center. And for paragraph, text align justify. Okay, it's not big of a difference, as you can see, justify, because the text is pretty much spread out, but nevertheless, if we place if we add the text align justify, it will spread out evenly, even more. Okay, perfect. So here's the first challenge completed. Now, next one. Adjust the width of an element using the width property. You can specify the width of an element using the width property. Okay, we did this in the previous one with the image of the cat, if you followed along so far. Values can be given in relative length units such as m, absolute length units such as pixels, or as a percentage of its container. Here's an example that changes the width of an image to 220 pixels. Yeah, so pretty much what we did in the previous challenge. Okay, let's see. Add a width property to the entire card and set it to an absolute value of 245 pixels. Use the full card class to select the element. Okay, look at that. They're already styled a little bit, so width 245 pixels. Okay, and you can see now it's squished because it doesn't have width auto anymore. By default, all the most of the elements, the divs and block sized elements will have width be auto or 100%, one of two. So if we specify a fixed width, it will shrink depending on the content, on the parent actually. Okay, run the tests, submit and go. Okay, let's see the chat. Hello Ankit and hello Gia, welcome to the live stream. Good. Adjust the height. So as you can set the width, you can set the height also. Okay, add a height property to the h4 tag and set it to 25 pixels. Height 25 pixels. Alright, run the test. As easy as that. Okay, we'll donate later. Use the strong tag to make text bold. Okay. You can use the strong text to make text bold. This is often used to draw attention to a text and symbolize that it is important. With the strong tag, the browser applies the CSS of font weight bold to the element. Alright. Okay, one thing before we move on. As I mentioned before in the previous live streams, make sure that you either follow along and you code yourself too, or you pause this video and do it on your own if you're watching this recording. If you're in the live stream now, then you can open yourself freeCodeCamp and do the exercises with me. This way you get your hands dirty and you'll learn the most out of it. By only watching me do it, it's good, but it's not enough. So I highly recommend you do it yourself too. Alright. Let's continue. Wrap a strong tag around Stanford University inside a p tag. Do not include the period. Okay, let's see. So we have the p tag and we want to wrap strong around it. Do not include the period. Oh, we need to wrap it around Stanford University here. Strong, like that. Okay, good. So you can see now that this text is highlighted, sort of. Font weight now becomes bold. Perfect. Use the U tag to underline text. Okay, so the U tag is the same as saying text decoration underline in CSS. Wrap the U tag around the text PhD students. Okay, let's find that. And we say U and we close it. And look at that, now it's highlighted, or also it looks like a link. So this tag is not used that much, at least I don't use it that much. Alright, 10%, good. Use the EM tag to italicize text. This is the same as saying font style italic in CSS. Wrap EM tag around the content of the paragraph tag to give it emphasis. Okay, so around all of it. EM, and at the end we close the tag. Okay, so the EM tag should wrap around the contents of the p tag, not the p tag itself. Oh, okay. Although, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Okay, not sure why they enforce that. Anyway, use the S tag to strike through text. Interesting. I use this tag, I think, never. And is the same as text decoration line through. Okay, where should we use it? Wrap the tag Google inside the H4. Alright, sure, why not? So S and S. So okay. You should include the word alphabet in the H4. Oh, and then add the word alphabet inside it. So wrap the S tag around Google inside the H4 tag, and then add the paragraph, add the word alphabet inside it, which should not have the strike through. Okay, so something like that. Good. Let's see the chat. Hello Rahman, how are you? I'm fine. Doing some freeCodeCamp. Next, create an horizontal line using the HR element. This one you might use it. So let's see, add an HR tag underneath the H4, which contains the card title. So here, HR. Okay, this is a self-enclosing tag. And look at that, now we have a line there. You can pretty much do the same, have the same appearance by using a border bottom on the H4. And maybe usually you will do that, so. But it's nice to know that that exists. Okay, adjust the background color property of text. Okay, instead of adjusting your overall background color of the text, background or the color of the text, to make the foreground easily readable, you can add the background color to the element holding the text you want to emphasize. This challenge uses RGBA instead of hex codes or normal RGB. Okay, so RGBA basically adds another value to the function call or whatever this is. So basically we have red, green, blue. We learned that in the previous video. And then we have alpha as the last one, which specified the opacity, which is a value from 0 to 1. Okay, let's see. To make the text stand out more, adjust the background color of the H4 element to the given RGB value. Okay. Background color should be RGBA 45, 45, 45 and 0.1. Alright. Also the H4, remove the height property and add a padding of 10 pixels. Okay, let's remove the height and add a padding of 10 pixels. Okay, look at that. It's much better. Run the tests. Rahman is asking, JavaScript coming up after the responsive design. Okay, you've been asking You guys been asking a lot about JavaScript. Let's see the curriculum. So for now, we have the applied visual design. And then tomorrow, I'm going to go over applied accessibility, responsive web design principles. I think I can do these two in one live stream, and then CSS Flexbox and CSS Grid in another stream tomorrow evening, my evening. And then we can start working on the 5 projects. If everything goes well, I should be finished this week. And then starting next week, we're going to go into JavaScript, which you all be waiting for. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. Now let's get back into our challenge. Adjust the size of a header versus a paragraph tag. The font size of a header tags H1 through H6 should generally be larger than the font size of a paragraph. This makes it easier for the user to visually understand the layout and level of importance of everything on the page. You use the font size property to adjust the size of the text in an element. Make sure the heading significantly... Okay. I can't read. That's weird. To make the heading significantly larger than the paragraph, change the font size of H4 tag to 27 pixels. Okay, font size 27 pixels. So now the heading is much bigger. Add a box shadow to a card-like element. Okay, box shadow is a nice property. Alright, so it has a couple of values. We have the offset X, which is the first value, offset Y. We have the blur radius. Then we could have the spread radius, the fourth one here if it's specified, and the last one can be the color. Offset X, how far the shadow will be pushed horizontally, and offset Y vertically. So if you add 10 pixels on the offset X, it will go 10 pixels to the right. If you add minus 10 pixels, it will go 10 pixels to the left. Same for the offset Y, it will go down, and then if the negative, it will go up on the Y-axis. Then the blur radius. The blur radius and the spread radius are optional. They're not required, but you can specify them and you can play around with the values so you can see what they do. And we can also have multiple box shadows applied, multiple versions, like separated by commas. So you can see here in this example we have one and then we have another one. Okay, good. Let's see what's the exercise. The element now has an ID of thumbnail. Okay, with this selector, use the example CSS values above to place a box shadow on the card. Okay, why not? So for the thumbnail, we can apply this box shadow, and look at that. Now it's more obvious that it gives it a little bit of 3D effect. It pops out a little bit. Okay. Next, decrease the opacity of an element. Alright, so we learned about opacity when we set the RGBA value, but you can also specify the opacity separately using the opacity property. Here's an example. Set the opacity of the anchor tag to 0.5 0.5 using links class to select them. So here on the links, opacity should be 0.5. And you can see now these links have a little bit of opacity. Yep. And opacity could go from 0, which is basically hidden, all the way up to 1, which is 100% visible. And you can also have 0.5 or something if you want. Alright, run the tests. Perfect. Use the text transform property to make text uppercase. Okay, this one is a good one. Text transform, you're going to use it quite a while. When you want, especially when you want to do text transform uppercase. There are multiple values: lowercase, uppercase, capitalize, and these default ones: initial, inherit, and none, which pretty much all the CSS properties have. Okay, it's pretty clear what each of them does. Lowercase will turn all the letters to lowercase, uppercase the reverse, capitalize will turn the first letters to uppercase. Okay, let's see. Transform the text of H4 to be uppercase using the text transform property. Okay, text transform uppercase. Transform. And look at that, now all the letters are uppercase. If we use capitalize, only the first one will be, or if you use lowercase, all of them will be lowercase. Uppercase. Uppercase, like that, okay. Good. We are 25% done. Perfect. Set the font size for multiple heading elements. Ooh, nice. The font size property used to specify how large the text is in a given element. This rule can be used for multiple elements to create visual consistency of text on the page. In this challenge, you'll set the values for all H1 through H6 tags to balance the heading size. Okay, so we need to set H1 font size too when we have all this. So let me be a little lazy. Can we do something like this? And can we have multiple cursors? Yeah, look at that. So now we can be fancy. We delete this, we copy this, we add the braces around, and here we can say font size and commas. And look at that, how easy it was. So now the H1 is the biggest, which it should be, and it goes down like that. Perfect. Okay, set the font weight. Alright. Now we can play around with our, or can we? Let's be lazy again. So we copy this, paste it here, create multiple cursors like that, copy it, delete everything, and then create multiple cursors here like that, and say font weight and paste it in. Alright, perfect. As easy as that. Set the font size of paragraph text. It's interesting how they go again for the font size. We learned about it already, no? Change it to 16 pixels. Okay, why not? Run the tests. Perfect. Set the line height of paragraph. Okay, so the line height is used to change the height of each line in a block of text. As the name suggests, it changes the amount of vertical space that each line of text gets. This is also a useful property. So let's play around with it too, so you can see what it does. Line height 25 pixels. Now you can see that the height of the line is 25 pixels. You can go 16 pixels as the font, and you can see how squished it is. Or you can go 0. And now it's squished. Okay, 25 pixels is the one they required. So, boom. Adjust the hover state. Okay, so now we're learning about the hover selector. We can basically target a selector, like in this case the A tag, and we can say what should happen when someone hovers over it with the mouse. So like this. Let's see. The code editor has a CSS rule to style all the A tags. Add a rule so that when the user hovers over the A tag, the color is blue. So we can do that by specifying A colon hover, and we can say color blue. And now when we hover over the link, look at that. It turns blue. We can do a lot of things like font size 100 pixels if we're crazy enough. And look at that. So basically, whatever style you want to apply when you hover over an element. This can be a link, it can be a div, it can be an image, anything you want. Okay. Next. Good. Now positioning. This is an important one. So let me drink a little water. Okay. Let's see, the live stream is going well. Say hi in the chat if everything is well, or whatever. Say whatever you want. Okay, and we shall continue. CSS treats HTML elements as its own box. We saw in the previous session that everything is basically a box, which is usually referred as the CSS box model. Block level items automatically start on a new line. Headings, paragraphs, and divs. They are block level elements. So they're basically taking up the full width of the parents. While inline items sit within surrounding content, images or spans, and labels also. So if, for example, we are going to add, let me think, a span here, and we can say Florin in it. We're going to say that the span goes on the same row. But if we change this to a paragraph, it will be pushed on the new row because this is a block level element. Okay, the default layout of elements in this way is called the normal flow of a document, but CSS offers the position property to override it. So basically what they mean is that you can see here we have the H1 and then the H2 goes underneath it, and then we have the paragraph which goes underneath it. So that's the normal flow of a document. But what if we want to take this text, although it comes the last in the HTML, and we want it to be placed on top here? So we can do that using positioning, changing the position property. Okay, when the position of an element is set to relative, it allows you to specify how CSS should move it relative to its current position in the normal flow of the page. This property, it's paired with one of the left, right, top and bottom properties. These say how many pixels, percentages or EMs to move the item away from where it is normally positioned. Okay, the following example moves the paragraph 10 pixels away from the bottom. So you can see here they specified the position to be relative and then they moved the bottom to 10 pixels, which will basically move it up 10 pixels. Okay, we'll probably see in the example here. Alright, changing an element's position to relative does not move it from the normal flow. other elements around it still behave as if the element were in default position. Yeah, so the relative position, although it's set and we can move the text wherever we want, it won't affect the elements coming afterwards. It will still behave like there is there in that space. Note, positioning gives you a lot of flexibility and power over the visual layout of a page. It's good to remember that no matter the position of elements, the underlying HTML markups should be organized and make sense when read from top to bottom. This is how users with visual impairment who rely on assistive devices like screen readers access your content. Okay. Change the position of the H2 to relative. So let's see, position, relative, and use CSS offset to move it 15 pixels away from the top. So top, 15 pixels, and now it should be pushed down. Look at that. And you can see how it didn't affect the paragraph here. So if we remove it, this is the normal position by default, and we can push it 15% down, 15 pixels down. Or we can do 105 pixels down. Look at that. So now it's completely jumped from its original position. We have a question in the chat. Are you completing the whole applied visual design? Yes, I am. You are welcome to follow along. Okay, so let's leave it at 15 pixels. Notice there is no impact on the positioning of the surrounding H1 and P elements. Yeah, so position relative, it's not affecting the the tags around it. But there are positions, absolute and fixed, which will affect. Okay. Let's see. Look at that, some nice GIF here to visually see what happens. Move a relatively positioned element with CSS offset. Okay, so we basically did this. Use CSS offset to move the H2 15 pixels to the right and 10 pixels up. So we wanted to move it to the right. So basically we want to add on the left 15 pixels, and we wanted to move it down up. So we want to the bottom to add 10 pixels. Look at that. So if we comment this out, it's like that, and if we apply these styles, it pushes it up and to the right. Good. Lock an element to its parent with absolute positioning. Now, this is one of probably the most misunderstood property. I had a lot of people asking me to do a tutorial on positioning, and position absolute is that one which is not very understood, I guess, because position absolute and position relative go hand in hand. I'm planning on releasing a tutorial about this and with example and everything. But now let's continue with our challenge. Okay, so the next option in CSS position is absolute, which locks the element in place relative to its parent container. Unlike the relative position, this removes the element from the normal flow of the document, so surrounding items ignore it. The CSS offset property, top, bottom, left, or right, are used to adjust position. Our nuance with absolute positioning is that it will be locked relative to its closest positioned ancestor. So, by default, they didn't specify this, maybe they will in the future. So by default, all the elements on the page are position static. That's the default behavior. Now, when you want to position something absolute and you want it to position it inside a container, that container must be a position other than static. So you have to give it either position relative or absolute or fixed or whatever. So it must be other than but the default position static. If it's not, then the position absolute element will go one level up. And if it won't find any ancestors which are positioned on something else than static, so the default, it will be positioned based on the body or the HTML, one of the two tags. I'm not 100% sure, but it should, I think it's the body. Okay, so yeah, the browser will keep looking up the chain and ultimately default to the body tag. Look at that, so I was right. Okay, let's see the exercise. Look the search bar element to the top right. Lock the search bar element to the top right of its section parent by declaring its position as absolute. Give it top and right offset of 15 pixels. Okay. So you can see here we have the section which is position relative. And now we want the search bar to be position absolute. So now you can see, it's interesting. Let's give this a background of purple so we can see it. Background purple. Adding 20 pixels. Okay, good. So now we can see this section. We couldn't because this took up the whole section, because it's still interesting. We should have seen the background. Oh well. Okay. So now the position is relative on the section, and here we have position absolute. Look at that. If we don't have position absolute, this element will take its place in the flow. So it will have a height and width and maybe some margin depending on the browser. It's not specified, so the browser will add in its own default settings. But when we say position absolute, then it will go out of the flow. And the reason we see the padding here, oh yeah, I forgot. So we can now see this section being purple because we added the padding. And now we have padding 20 all over the top, right, left, and bottom. Without, if we remove the position absolute here and we remove the padding, now we can see the background purple there. So that was the issue. Anyway, let's focus. So we need to set the top to be 50 pixels and the right to be 15 pixels, like that. Yeah, it pretty much goes out of the of its parent, because the parent doesn't have a width and a height. So it will basically be 0, the height will be 0, and it will be pushed 15 pixels down. Okay, I hope you understood it. If not, let me know in the chat, or if you're watching this recording, let me know in the comments below and I'll answer it. Good. Lock an element to the browser window with fixed positioning. Okay, so the major difference between position fixed and absolute is that an element with fixed position will be fixed through the body. So it will stay in the same place in the viewport. They say here that an element with fixed position won't move when the user scrolls. Yeah, that's also something. So you can see now that the elements here move if we scroll, but if we're going to set the navbar to be position fixed, and we set the top 0 and left 0 as they say here, now look, it's locked there on the top, and when we scroll the navbar stays there. So it will stay in the viewport at 0 pixels and 0 pixels. 0 pixels from the top, 0 pixels from the left. Okay. Okay, let's see other returns realize. Oh yeah. So it's also taken out of the flow. Good. Usually what you'll use the fixed positioning is when you have either a sticky nav for your navigation, or you want to create a model and you want the model to be in the center of the screen. Or push elements left or right with the float property. Now this is also misunderstood a lot, and in the later years you don't really use this much because now we have flexbox and grid. But I suppose we should still look into this. The next positioning tool does not actually use position, but sets the float property of an element. Floating elements are removed from the normal flow of the document and pushed to either the left or right of their containing parent. It's commonly used with the width property to specify how much horizontal space the floated element requires. Okay, the given markup would work well as a two-column layout with the section and the side elements next to each other. Give the left item a float of left, float left, and the right with a float of right, float right. And look at that now, because we also have a width of 50% here and a width of 40% here, which is, if you add them up, it's less than 100% or equal. Then you can see the elements being on the same row. This is the way we did responsive columns before we had flexbox and grid. But nowadays it's not used that much. Change the position of overlapping elements with the z-index. Okay, this is another property which is used. So basically what happens is that if you're having elements with position absolute and you're moving them around, it might happen that some of your elements will be on top of the other ones. And maybe you want the ones which are behind to be on top of the ones that are going second in the HTML. So for example, here we have the first div, which is position absolute, and also we have the second div, which is position absolute. This one is pushed a little down and to the right. But you can see that the second element is on top of the first one because it goes second in the HTML markup. But what if you want the first class to be on top? Then you have to specify the z-index with a value bigger than the element you want to override. So here's the example. Add the z-index property to the element with the class name of first, the red rectangular, and set its value to 2. So you can see they set the value to 1 for the second one, for the z-index property. So now we need to set z-index to 2 because we want it to be bigger. And look at that, now it's on top of it. If we go ahead and set this to 3, it will go on top of each other again, top of the first one again. So yeah, this is how you place elements on top. 46%, good. Center an element horizontally using the margin property. Other position techniques is to center a block element horizontally. One way to do this is to set the margin value to auto. Yeah, this is a common use case, so you set margin to auto and it will push the margins on all the sides so that the block element will be centered horizontally. This is also used in flexbox if you have a flex element which is the parent of an element. By setting the margin to auto, you can center it even vertically. but we'll learn more about this in the Flexbox section. Okay, learn about complementary colors. Whoa, man, that's a lot to read. I won't read everything. You go away and read. So basically, they want us to learn about how colors combine each other to look nice. We have some examples: red with cyan, green with magenta, and blue with yellow. Okay, you are free to read this, I won't go through. Change the background color property of blue and yellow classes to their respective colors. Okay, so this one should be blue and this one should be yellow. Notice how the colors look different next to each other than they do compared against the white background. Okay, that's nice. And we're halfway there. Perfect. Tertiary colors. Okay, the same. So basically we add one more so it will look nice in 3 colors. Again, I won't read through. Feel free to read through and then go away and finish the go ahead. I keep saying go away. That's not the right thing. So go ahead and finish it. Orange, cyan, and raspberry. Is that a color in CSS? It's not, so we have to use the hex code. Look at that. They look very nice together. That's basically what tertiary colors are. Okay, there is a nice tool, Canva Colors, which I'm using to do just that. So you paste in a color here in hex value, and then you can select triadic here or tetradic. You get 4 or monochromatic or complementary, and you can change it around, and look at that, you get nice colors always. So canva.com/colors/color wheel. Okay, good. Run the test. All right, something's not okay. Should have a background color of orange. Okay, so we should use the hex colors, not the color names. Okay, sure, why not? Adjust the color of various elements to complementary colors. Oh, look at that, we have a nice website here, small website. And you can see it's pretty white and blackish. The complementary colors changed. The challenge showed that opposite colors on the color wheel can make each other appear more vibrant when placed side by side. However, the strong visual contrast can be jarring if it's overused on a website, and can sometimes make text harder to read if it's placed on a complementary colored background. In practice, one of the colors is usually dominant, and the complement is used to bring visual attention to certain content of the page. This page will use a shade of teal as a dominant color and its orange complement to visually highlight the sign up button. Okay, those. Change the background color of both the header and footer from black to teal. Okay. So we have black here and here. We change it to teal. Look at that. Looks nice. Then change the H2 text color to teal as well. H2 text color. Okay. Finally, change the background color of the button to the orange color. Oh, look at that. It looks nice. I would also add the white text, but it's fine. Adjust the hue of a color. Okay. That's a lot of reading also. So I won't do that. So as we had RGB, RGBA, and hex, we can also have HSL, which stands for, let me see, hue, saturation, and lighting, something like that. I don't use it much, but I've seen that recently the designers started using it because apparently it's a nicer way to find nice colors. So yeah, as Patrick says, hues, saturation, and lightness. That's what it stands for. I think this goes from 0 to 360. This goes from 0 to 100%, and this goes again from 0 to 100%. And as Patrick says in the chat, it's typically easier to make a consistent palette in HSL. Yeah, that's probably it. I'm not a designer, so I don't know much, but I've seen designers use it. So you might want to take a look. Okay, change the background color of each div element based on the class names. Okay, why not? So let's see. Body should stay the same. We have green. We have cyan. And we have blue. Look at that. Colors. Adjust the tone of a color. Okay, so this has to do with this HSL. I leave you to read this also. Let's do the challenge. All elements have a default background color of transparent. That's good to know. Our nav element currently appears to have a cyan background because the element behind it has a background color set to cyan. Yeah, that's a good point also. So all the elements have transparent by default. And you can set it to whatever color you want. Add the background color to the nav element so it uses the same cyan hue, but has 80% saturation and 25% lightness. Okay, so we take this and set it to the background color. And now we want to do 80% saturation and 25% lightning. Oh, look at that. Doesn't it look nice? Yeah, now I can see why HSL is so good. Good. Next, create a gradual CSS linear gradient. Okay. Applying a color on HTML elements is not limited to one flat hue. CSS provides the ability to use color transitions, otherwise known as gradients on elements. This is accessed through the background property linear gradient function. Here is a general syntax. So we set on the background the linear gradient to be the direction, and then we can set how many colors we want. Okay, separated by commas. The first argument specifies the direction from which color transition starts. It can be started as a degree, where 90 degree makes a vertical gradient, and 45 degree is angle, like a backslash. The following arguments specify the order of colors used in the gradient. Okay, let's play around with it and we can see what it does. Background, linear gradient, and we want a 35 degrees from CCFFFF to FFCCC. Wow, look at that. Not very obvious though. Okay, let's see if we place 90 degrees. Okay, so it goes from left to right. If we do 180 degrees, it goes to top, from top to bottom. You can also say to right. Right, if I could type right. Yeah. So, or to left. These are also values. To bottom. or from bottom. That goes also, but only 2. Okay. Let's set it back to 35 degrees because that's the challenge. Next. Ooh, look at that. Use a CSS linear gradient to create a stripped element. Repeat linear gradient function. Oh, I didn't know about it. That's nice. It's similar to the linear gradient, with the major difference that it repeats the specified gradient pattern. This accepts a variety of values, but for simplicity you'll work with an angle value and color stop values in the challenge. Oh, so now we also specify when it should start. So from 0 degrees it should be yellow, from 40 degrees it should be blue, and in between they'll do the gradient. Okay, yeah, this is pretty much what they say here. Yeah, so 0% yellow, then blend, then blue, 40% green, blend, red, and so on and so forth. If every 2 color stop values are the same color, the blending isn't noticeable because it's between the same color, followed by a hard transition to the next color. So you'll end up with stripes. Okay. Joey, you got a question. Sure. What is it? In the meantime, let's see. Make stripes by changing the repeating linear gradient to use a gradient angle of 45 degrees. Whoa. Hurts my eyes for some reason. Then set the first 2 color stops to yellow. And finally the second color stops to black. Yellow. And black. And black. Whoa, look at that, that's really nice. I actually didn't know you can do that. So, look at me learning something new today. Joy is asking, do you use a tool to get the pattern? Which pattern? Yeah, as Patrick said, CSS is doing it with this function. This is really nice. I'm glad. I have learned something new today. Good. Create texture by adding a subtle pattern as a background image. Ooh, we're learning about background image. Joy is asking, how do you know what the pattern will be like? Well, you have to play around with it, I guess, but as you saw, can I go back? Yeah, so you can see here, ooh, let me fix this again, black and black and 45 degrees. So basically what this does, it will start from the bottom left because we set 45 degrees, so it will go up like that. And it will start with yellow at 0 pixels. And it will go to yellow at 40 pixels. But then, because the second color here has the same pixel value, it will start with black again. So it will start with black and it will go to black to 80 pixels. So you pretty much can guess what it does. If we are going to put 2 more colors here, let's see. Purple from 80 pixels to purple 120 pixels. Look at that, now we have another stripe. So 0, 40, 40, 80, 80, 120. Also you can change the degrees, 90 degrees, and it will go to the right now. Or if you want to go the other way around, 270 degrees. And this will repeat, I guess, as long as the element has a background. This has a width of 70%. If we increase the width, you're going to see more of the black one because it continues to generate. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Now let's see. Background image. One way to add texture and interest to a background and have it stand out more is to add a subtle pattern. The key is balance, as you don't want the background to stand out too much and take away from the foreground. The background property supports the URL function in order to link to an image of the chosen texture of pattern. The link address is wrapped in quotes inside the parentheses. Okay, so Joe is asking, does the pixel go from left to right or diagonal direction? As Patrick said, it goes into the direction you specify as the first value of the parentheses. As a I suggest you play around with the value. Take this example and go there and change the values 100 times and see what happens until you completely understand what it does. You know, that's the best way to learn something. Take it, rip it apart and see what it does. Okay. Let me drink a little water. Good. Now, using the URL, set the background of the whole page to the body selector. Sure, so background, URL, and inside the quotes, look at that, we have this nice pattern, which is repeated and everything, but I guess we'll learn about that. Okay. Use the CSS transform scale property to change the size of an element. Oh, that's neat. We're going into transform. This is one of the English. This is one of the properties I like the most, because you can play around with it, transform it, scale it, translate it, and do all sorts of things. To change the scale of an element, CSS has a transform property along with its scale function. The following code doubles the size of a paragraph elements on the page. Scale 2. So this is by default it's scale 1. If you do 2, it will be double the amount. Let's see. Increase the size. Yeah, it will. If you do 2, it will be double amount. 3, it will be triple, and so on. If you want half of it, you will do 0.5. Let's see, increase the size of the element with the ID of bold to 1.5 times its original size. So we're going to do transform like that, scale 1.5. And look at that, the second ball with the ball ID, with the ID ball 2, it's now 1.5 times. If we do 2, it's 2 times bigger. I guess the radius, it's twice. I mean, it's doubled, right? This diameter, yeah, I think the diameter, but the size, it's actually 4 times. Okay, but that's just like a little off topic. Use the CSS transform scale property to scale an element on hover. Ooh, look at that, combining two things. So yeah, basically what we can do is that we have this div, and when we hover on it, when we hover over it, we want it to grow. So we can apply the transform scale property on the hover selector. Note, applying a transform to a div element will also affect any child elements contained in the div. Yup, that's right. Add a CSS rule for the hover state of a div. So div hover. And use the transform, if I could type, to scale the div element to 1.1 times its original size when the user hovers over it. So scale 1.1. So now if we hover over, look at that, grows nicely. If you've been watching my tutorials, you've seen that I use transform scale on buttons, and I do something like this, 0.98. And when you hover over, you get just a little indication that you did something, so you hovered over. That's what I like to do on the buttons. Good. Next. We are 67, so 2/3 away. Nice. Use the CSS transform property skew x to skew an element along the x-axis. Okay, this is a nice property. I don't use it that much, but it's nice to know about it. Skew the element with the ID bottom by 24 degrees. Transform skew x 24 degrees. Okay, so now it's skewed. As I said, I don't use it much, but let's see if we use 50 degrees. Look at that, 90 degrees. Okay, disappeared. 100 degrees. All right. 170 degrees. Yeah, well, play around with the numbers and you put it there. Run the test. Next. Okay, skew y is on the y-axis. Alright, so that's pretty obvious, right? Transform skew y minus 10 degrees. Okay, pretty simple. Hello Andra, welcome to the live stream. How are you? Oh, look at that. Create the graphic using CSS. By manipulating different selectors and properties, you can make interesting shapes. One of the easiest ones to try is a crescent moon shape. How does that look? For this challenge, you need to work with the box shadow property that sets the shadow of an element, along with the border radius. You will create a round, transparent object with a crisp shadow that is slightly offset to the side. The shadow is actually going to be the moon shape you see. Ooh. In order to create a round object, the border radius property should be set to a value of 50%. Yeah, we learned this in the CSS section. You may recall from an earlier challenge. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Okay, move on. Manipulate. That's not the word. Manipulate the square element in the editor to create the moon shape. First, change the background color to transparent. Sure do. Transparent. Transparent. Okay. Next, set the border radius to 50%. 50%. Ooh, look at that. Finally, change the box shadow property to set the offset X to 25 pixels. 25. Offset Y to 10. Blue radius to 0. Sprayed radius to 0. And color to blue. Ooh, look at that, but I want a purple moon. This is beautiful. Nice. Let's go back to the blue one. Okay, so look at that. We used one single element, and by playing around with the border radius and adding a shadow, we achieve this nice, how is it called? Crescent moon shape. Yeah, so it's a half moon. Good. Next. Thank you. Next. Okay, create a more complex shape using CSS and HTML. Alright, look at that. We're going to create a heart, as I can see here. One of the most popular shapes. My mind it's reading faster now, so I can't keep up. One of the most popular shapes in the world is the heart shape. Ooh, I didn't know that. And in this challenge, you'll create one using pure CSS. Too bad we didn't do this challenge on Valentine's Day. It would be nice. But first, you need to understand the before and after pseudo elements. Exactly, that's nice to have. These pseudo elements are used to add something before or after a selected element. In the following example, a before pseudo element is used to add a rectangular to an element with the class heart. Yeah, so basically, the before and after pseudo elements can be used to create separate elements on top of one you already have. So you can see here in this example, by default, we only created not by default, but we only have one div with a class of heart, which is a rectangular of the same, which is a square basically, because it has the same height and width, and the background color of pink. But then using the after and the before pseudo elements, you can create two more elements on top of it, or well, before goes before and after goes after. Pretty obvious. And you can also set the height, the width, the depositioning of it, the border radius, and all that fun stuff. The background color, one of the properties which is required, and I can see they say it here also, is the content property. This is a required property in order to see these elements which are created with the before and after selectors. Okay. So when they are used, the content property is required, but it's set to an empty string. Okay. This can be used to add something like a text if you want, but usually you're only going to use it. It's just because it's required, so we say an empty string there. Okay. Let's see. This is okay, blah blah blah. You can read it. I will skip it. Let's see the exercise. Transform the element of the screen to a heart. This will be nice. In the heart after selector, change the background color to pink. Okay, pink. Good. Now, the border radius to 50%. 50%. Ooh, look at that. Next, target the element with the class heart and fill in the transform property. Use the rotate function with -45 degrees. That's interesting, we haven't learned about rotate function yet. We're using it here. Oh wow. So rotate, as you can guess, it will rotate the element. And in this case we need to do -45 degrees. So you can see that it rotated -45 degrees. It's interesting that they make us use the rotate function before we learn it. Oh wow. Finally, in the heart before selector, set its content property to an empty string. And here is the magic. If we set it to an empty string, look at that, we have a heart. How beautiful that is. Whoops. I wanted to zoom in. Look at that, a beautiful heart. But let me show you a little trick because I can't hold it. So instead of, let's say we want a red heart because red is nicer. And Usually you will have to change the background color for these pseudo elements also. You can do something like inherit here on the boat, and they will basically inherit their parent, and their parent is the heart class. So now you can do blue hearts or purple, which should be the best, with just changing this line of code. Let's keep it to pink. Will this pass? No, because it should say pink here also. Pink. Okay. 75% complete. Let's see. How do so many people create different shapes? Is asking Joy. Is it just by seeing other people doing it on YouTube? Well, at first, yes. You have to see what CSS is capable of, but then you can play around and create shapes on your own. Patrick, if you remove the background color, isn't the default to inherit? No, it's not. I don't think so. Let's see. It's transparent by default, yeah. So it's not inherit. You have to specify that it's inherited. Good question, Patrick. Good question. Thank you. Ooh. So now we're going to learn about keyframes and animations. Again, a lot of text to be read. So I won't. But basically, let me think. How can I explain it better without having to read everything? So, if you want to create an animation, there is this nice property which you can set animation, which has a couple of values. You can see set the animation name, animation duration, the animation easing function, and all sorts of properties. And one thing which is important is that when you set the animation name, let's say color for healing is this example, you then will create a keyframes. This is something new to us now. So you will declare around, or what is this? Around, right? Keyframes, and you will give this same name, so colorful. And then inside the brackets here, not the brackets, the brackets, right? I'm right. Oh boy, this is tiring. So excuse my mind not working 100%. Okay, so inside the brackets here, you're going to specify what the animation should do at specific times. So in this case, at 0%, so at the beginning, the background color of this element will be blue, and then slowly it will go up to 100%, where the background color will become yellow. You can specify 0%, 1%, 10%, 50%, how much you want. Basically, if you remember, we did the linear gradient. That's basically the same thing. So up to 100%, I'm not sure if you can go over, but I think up to 100%, you can specify the times what the elements should look like. So let's play around with it, and you can understand better with practice. At least that is what I did. Let's see, create an animation for the element with the ID of react or rect. That's a funny name. By setting the animation name to be rainbow. Okay. And the animation duration to be 4 seconds. I guess later we're going to learn that we can put this in the same declaration. Animation to be rainbow 4 seconds, like this. But yeah, maybe in a future lesson. Okay. Next, declare keyframes. Keyframes, which will need the name of the animation, so rainbow, and set the background color at the beginning, so 0%. Background color should be what? Blue. Okay. And then at 100%, so at the end, it should be yellow. Let's see how that looks now. Yellow. Okay, so look at that. It will start with blue and then it will animate to yellow. And at the end, it will finish, when the animation is finished, it will be black because they set here on the div the background to be black. So basically this animation will kick in, it will run for 4 seconds, it will start from blue and it will go up to yellow. But for example, if we want to specify an in-between value, let's see, background color here to be red or pink, not pink, purple. I like purple. Now you can see that it will start to blue, it will go to purple, and then it will go to yellow. Basically, what these percentages mean, 0% is start. Then 50% will basically mean at 2 seconds, because we have the animation duration to 4 seconds. If we change this to 10 seconds, then it will start at 0, will be blue, then at 5 seconds in it will be purple, and then the 10 seconds it will go up to yellow. I hope this makes sense for you. Again, as I said before, take this and play around with the values. You can have it not just the background color, you can play around with the opacity, with the transform, with the width and height, although width and height is not recommended, but we'll learn in the future probably. With all the CSS, not all, mostly all the CSS properties you can animate. So take this example and play around with it and see what it does. Okay, let me switch this so we can complete the... Oh, green at 50%. Oh, I didn't saw that. So 50% background color should be green. So now it starts with blue, goes to yellow, goes to green, and then goes to yellow. Alright, 77%. Use CSS animation to change the hover state of a button. Okay, so now we're combining animation with hover. So we're going to run the animation when we hover over the button. Okay. Note that ms stands for milliseconds, where 1000 milliseconds is 1 second. Yeah, that's good to know. You have here 500 milliseconds is the same as saying 0.5 seconds. Okay, use CSS keyframes to change the background color of the button element so it becomes that hex value when user hovers over it. The keyframes rule should only have the entry for 100%. Okay, so let's see what happens if we do that. We need this color like that. So for 100% we want the background color to be that. As you can see here, we didn't declare for 0%. So what happens there? Basically it will take the default background color which is set to the button. Let's see if we hover over. Oh, I didn't set the name here. Background color. This name we need here, background color. So now the animation, the keyframes knows which animation. Let's hover over, look at that. You can see that for 500 milliseconds it goes to this lighter blue color. But then the animation is finished and it goes back to the original background color. Yeah, what I would do here to make it prettier, it will be 50%. So now it will go up to this color and then go back to the original color. Look at that. So like nice clipping. Okay, but that's just me. Next. Modify fill mode of an animation. Alright, fill mode. This is something I actually learned recently. Okay, let's see what they say about it. Okay, that's great, but it doesn't work right yet. Notice how the animation resets after 500 milliseconds has passed, causing the button to revert back to original color. You want the button to stay highlighted. Exactly. This can be done by setting the animation fill mode property to forwards. The animation fill mode specifies the style applied to an element when the animation has finished. You can set it like so. Exactly. So by setting let me copy it over here. By setting the animation fill mode to forwards, what it basically says is that when the animation is finished, the background color in this case should remain what it is at the 100% value. So it won't go back to the original state, which is declared here. Let's see how that works. Look at that. So now when we hover over, the animation kicks in, it will go up to that color and it will stay there because we set the animation fill mode to forwards. Alright. Create movement using CSS animation. Ooh, look at that, that's nice. You saw there how this animated. Okay. Let's see. When elements has a specified position, such as fixed or relative, the CSS offset properties right, left, top, and bottom can be used in animation rules to create movement. As shown in the example below, you can push the item downwards, then upwards by setting the top property of the 50% keyframes at 50 pixels, but having it set to 0 pixels for the first 0% and the last 100%. So yeah, basically at 0% it will have top 0 and then it will go down in the halfway, the 50% mark, and it will go up again when it reaches 100%. Okay, add a horizontal motion to the div animation using the left offset property. Okay, add the keyframes rule so rainbow starts at 0 pixels, moves 25 pixels, and then ends up at minus 25 pixels. Don't replace the top property in the editor. The animation should have both vertical and horizontal motion. Okay, so at 0% we have left 0 pixels. Then at 50% we have left 25 pixels. And then at 100% we have left minus 25 pixels. Look at that, that's a nice animation. Yeah, so as I said, you can play around with this and create all sorts of crazy animations. Although they haven't said that, but you shouldn't play too much. Shouldn't animate top and left positions because those use CPU. I think that's the issue. So basically it's slower. But instead you should only animate opacity, transform, background color, and color. These are the properties you can animate without losing any performance. Other than that, even though if you can animate width, height, top, left, right, bottom, and all the other properties, it will be slower. Okay, that's just as a little tip for you. Create visual direction by fading an element from left to right. Okay, so we're going to play with the opacity. Target the element with a ideal ball and add the opacity property set to 0.1 at 50%. Okay, opacity 0.1. So basically this will fade in the ball when it reaches 50% mark. We already learned this, so it's pretty obvious, right? Alright. Whoa, look at that bounce. Nice. Animate elements continually using an infinite animation count. Okay, so another property we can set on animation is animation iteration count. Basically, this will tell how many times should the animation run. You could see here that it ran 3 times, 1, 2, 3, because we have the animation iteration count to 3. And there is also a special value which is infinite. And guess what that does? Let's put it to infinite. And let's see how many times it bounces. Okay, you can count. I'm kidding. So basically it will run forever. It will bounce until, I don't know, I lose electricity or something. So yeah, this is if you want the animation to run forever. Otherwise, if you only want to run it once, twice, or how many times you want, you specify a number here. Okay. Wow, look at that heartbeat. That was so nice. Okay, make a CSS heartbeat using an infinite animation count. Okay, let's see. Okay, animate change size. Alright. Keep the heart beating by adding the animation iteration count property for both the back class and the heart class and setting the value to infinite. Infinite. And infinite. Infinite. That's right. Why it doesn't? Oh, animation duration. No, sorry. So animation iteration count. Infinite. That's the property. Okay, look at that, the pulsing heart. Such a nice one. Okay, so basically you can see now how we are learning something by doing it multiple times. So that's called reinforcement learning, I think, right? Patrick, if you're still here, help me out with that. So by repeating the same thing over and over, you reinforce your learning and it sticks to you. Okay. Whoa, look at that. Animate elements at variable rates. Okay, there are a variety of ways to alter the animation rates of similarly animated elements. So far this has been achieved by applying an animation iteration count. To illustrate, the animation on the right consists of 2 stars that each decrease in size and opacity at 20% mark. Okay, I've read Patrick's comment. Okay, so 2 stars each decrease in size and opacity at 20% mark in the keyframes rule, which creates the twinkle animation. You can change the keyframes rule for one of the elements so that the stars twinkle at different rates. Okay, so we have 2 twinkles animations. Alter the animation rate for the element with the class of star1 by changing its keyframes rule to 50%. Let's see what it does. Oh, look at that. See, now, yeah, that's pretty obvious. So it changed from 20% to 50%, and because we have 2 animations, they run now differently. Okay, 90%, only 10% left. Good. Whoa, we have multiple now. Animate multiple elements at variable rates. Okay, that's what I was looking for. So we can play around with the animation duration and we can achieve pretty much the same effect. Set the animation duration of the elements with the classes *1, *2, and *3 to be 1 second, 0.9 seconds, and 1.1 seconds. So you can see now pretty much the same is applied, because although we have the same animation, we have the same keyframes twinkle, which runs on all the 3 stars. You can change the duration and then they appear like having 3 separate animations. You can go pretty nuts and 1 second, 2 seconds, and 3 seconds. Now look at that. Okay. One of my tutorials, I think the first one on my channel, does something like this. We have a loading animation with 3 circles which jump. So if you want to learn more about that, go and check out that tutorial. Okay, change animation timing with keywords. Okay, let's see, what is it about? In CSS animations, the animation timing function. Okay, this one is a good one. So basically, with animation timing function, we can specify how the animation will go from point A to point B. It can go either in a linear fashion, or you can have functions like is or is in, is out, or you can also create your own function, or your own custom function using cubic Bezier. Okay, so let's play around with this so you can see what it does. Let's finish their example. So for the elements with the ID ball 1 and 2, add an animation timing function. So animation timing function, and first will be linear, and the second one will be is out. Look at that. So basically they are starting and ending at the same point, but in between the timing function is different, so they'll run differently. The first one is a linear fashion, so all the time it will run at the same speed. But the is out, it will start faster and then end up slower. You can use is in, which will start slower and then speed up at the end, or is, which will, I think, do both. There is also is in out. Yeah, so this one starts later and speeds up midway and then ends later, so it will catch up with the other one. Okay, feel free to play again with this and see what they do. As I said, you can also play around with the cubic Bezier, it's called, I guess. Yeah, and there's a function and you can specify the values at all times, so you can create crazy animations. 94%, only a couple left. Okay, so yeah, Bezier curves. This is exactly what I was talking about. So you can create custom timing function using the Bezier curves. Okay, I won't read through this, but yeah, look at that. It has 4 values. Okay, coordinates, x-axis, y-axis. Alright. For the element with ID of ball 1, change the value of the animation timing function from linear to its equivalent. That's a funny word and I can't pronounce it. Cubic Bezier function value. Use the point values given in the example above. Okay, so here cubic Bezier will be 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah, that looks like linear. Yeah. Okay, then it's this. Oh boy. Yeah, so basically that's the linear. I didn't know that, so I just learned something new again. Amazing. Use a Bezier curve to move a graphic. A lot of text again, feel free to read it. To see the effect of the Bezier curve in action, change the animation function, timing function of the element with the ID of red to be cubic Bezier with x1, y1, x2, and y2, 0, 0, 0.58, and 1. Okay. Yeah, that looks like the ease out function, right? Because this one has the ease out and is the same. Oh well. And the last one. Whoa, look at those crazy animations. Nice. Make motion more natural using basic Bezier. Bezier curve. What I'm saying, bro. Okay. So change the value of animation timing function of the green one to be these values. Let's see how it will change it. Look at that, how nice is that? Like bouncing up and down with nice motion. Alright. We finished it. Perfect, good. So we finished the third section, Applied Visual Design, which focused a lot on CSS and the next level of CSS. In the previous live stream we did basic CSS, and now we learned about animation, we learned about other pseudo selectors, and what else? Transition, yeah, and positioning, which is really important. And what else? Font size, font, and all that. Oh well, you can watch it from the beginning and see what we learned. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you give it a like if you did, and subscribe if you haven't. And also for those of you who are live now, let me know if you have any questions. I'll happily answer them, and then I'm going to close this live stream and plan the next one. So for tomorrow we're going to have 2 more live streams. In the first one I'm going to go over applied accessibility and responsive web design principles. It should be doable in a live stream. And then I'm going over CSS Flexbox and CSS Grid, which will be a little work. I don't know that much CSS Grid, so I'm going to learn it apparently. And if everything goes well tomorrow, starting from Wednesday, we're going to build something. This will be nice. Alright. Thanks you all who joined. I see no questions in chat, so that means you understand everything and you're a genius, so that's perfect. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.